Anyways, so Dana's starting to look like his health is not as good. And all right, if you watch UFC and keep up with all this, you know he's shrunk. He has shrunk in the past 2 years specifically. Something's happened in the past 2 years. Now, Dana bulked up. So, like, you got to understand something. Dana kept getting bigger. Like, his arms were getting freaking huge. He was getting like Hulk Hogan size stuff. He was looking like a bodybuilder almost. Then it just stopped. I mean, it stopped, and he started shrinking. That makes me think there was a dramatic event or change. There must not have been a super dramatic event because he's almost always in our eyesight, but I feel like something happened there. Like something with his health, whether it was a warning from his doctor or a diagnosis of something. In addition to that, he started talking about fasting. So this dude, and he's been talking about it for about a year. So it makes me think he started talking about it after the first time he did it and knew he would keep doing it. Or he referenced, the first time he talked about it, he referenced how he started several months before, and he's worked his way up to what he's doing now. But what he's doing now, I wanted to say, he said twice a year he fasts for 3 days, but I hear him talk about fasting a lot more. So he will only have water for 3 days. And he swears that all these health gurus or whatever he has working for the UFC and all this say it's like a life-changing thing you can do. It like makes your body think that stuff's going wrong and you're starving and all this, and it kills off all your cells and makes new ones in preparation for battling whatever it thinks you're going to battle. And in the midst of all this, he said it even kills cancer cells. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I'm hoping it's not something like cancer. I'm hoping that was just a random benefit. But I wish I had the words to articulate this. And I'm not saying this is permanent. I'm not saying this is anything. But in my personal life, most of my family has passed from like old age or health issues. Like, that's just how it is. I don't have a family really. If you are some of my extended family that I'm not trying to disown you or anything. I'm just saying, like, I'm 35, and like I have a biological mom, but I grew up with mom and stepmom, or a dad and stepmom, and like they've both passed long ago. And I got some brothers and sisters, like I don't really know them. So anyway, not gonna get off. What I'm saying is, my dad was a lot older when he had me, so I've been to a lot of funerals and stuff, and I've seen kind of people at their old age or when they're on their way out, and I just feel like Dana's getting a little frail. He's like in the early stages of that. That's not to say you can't bounce back from that. I could be totally reading it wrong. He's 54, so his face is showing a little bit of age, like in his skin, and then he's got like moles and stuff popping up. I don't know if moles is the right word, but like freckles. So I thought that was unusual, but he's definitely looking small. You know what I mean? Like, he's just looking a lot smaller than he was. In addition to that, that's where I'm going to stop on the health thing and talk about something else. That was the first time I have heard him talk like this. And I'm almost tying it to the health. Like, Dana has always been like, Dana is the face of the UFC, and that's something I wish people would recognize when they're setting goals. It is not a UFC fighter that is the face of UFC. Like, a long time people would say Conor is the face of UFC. If you show a picture of Dana to anyone, you are going to have a better chance of him being recognized and affiliated with the UFC than anyone else on the entire planet. Does that make sense? Can we agree on that? Like, I don't feel like that's a debate. Dana was around for a decade, 2 decades before Conor, and his face was everywhere, every time there was an event, and it's continued to be like that. All right. In addition to that, I don't quite put Dana the same as Vince McMahon. Like, Vince McMahon was never going to let go of WWE. It's only because of the legality and stuff that he's not the head honcho running all that shit right now. I don't get that vibe from Dana that he wouldn't let go, but there kind of is a, whoever is going to take my spot has to do this right, and they got to show me that they're going to do it right. And he's actually been questioned on that before, and he's mentioned someone, he didn't say their name, but I'm pretty sure it's Hunter Campbell. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's going to hand it off to Hunter. The only thing about that is I'm not sure Hunter's a whole lot different in age than Dana. I could be wrong. But when Dana was talking at the press conference at 304, there were a couple of different instances where he, we'll start with the Muhammad Makov, the guy that's 12-0 with 7 wins in the UFC and they released. He basically said they don't want to re-sign him. He's separating himself from the company now. That wasn't something he would do a lot. I can think of a couple times where he has. So UFC lore, Dana told some, like Chuck Liddell and a couple other people. Chuck Liddell is one that really, I know for sure, that's sticking out. As long as you're alive, I got a job for you. As long as I'm in charge here, or it wasn't as long as you're alive. As long as I'm in charge here at the UFC, I've got a job for you. And he did that for several fighters. Forrest Griffin, I believe, is another one. Because of what they did in contribution to the sport when it was first coming up and the burdens that they took on. Beyond just performance and toll on their body. There's a lot more behind the scenes. So he had like Chuck Liddell getting paid $100,000 a year to be like an advisor. It was just a bullshit job. I'm sure Chuck was going to the PI trying to do something and be involved. He didn't want to sit home and be bored, but you get what I'm saying? When the company changed hands, they let go of Chuck because it was a bullshit spot. But as you can see, Forrest Griffin, or if you didn't know, Forrest Griffin is still employed and is at the PI. He was doing something that contributed, so they kept him. And when they let Chuck go, Dana got questioned about it in the press conference, and he's like, I told these guys, as long as I was in charge, I'd have a job for them. I'm not in charge anymore. He's like, I sold the company. He's like, I get you guys still see me as a I'm not the one running things anymore. So they get to talking about Muhammad Makov. Dana doesn't take ownership of that one. He ends up being like, yeah, that was the last fight on this contract. They don't want to re-sign him. It's not the grappling style, I don't believe. I believe there was a lot more incidents behind the scene. I think Muhammad pulls out of a lot of fights too, and it's just been a lot of extra work that wasn't worth the reward to the company. So they're like, fuck it, we're just going to let it go. He also did it when someone asked about the flags. Someone said Bahal had a one of the reporters asked, he said Bahal had a Palestinian flag and was instructed to take it down. And Dana like really tried to play off on this. Like he tried to be like, well, who told him to take it down? And he's like, well, I don't know them, but it looked like they were affiliated with the UFC. And Dana's like, oh, they're affiliated with the UFC. Would they have a UFC hat on or a name tag or something? Like he's being like Donald Trump and just mocking bullshit to stay away from addressing it. The flag thing's been going on for a lot longer than we realize, and I don't know all the details of it. I know with the Russia and Ukraine thing, they really put a foot down and they're like, we're not fucking dealing with these flags, but you still see them come out. But if you go deeper than that, if you go back to when Conor beat, it was Jose. I was wanting to say Eddie, but it was Jose. When Conor beat Jose, he had his coaches give him an Irish flag, and they kept trying. You have to really watch the background and like watch clips. They kept trying to get that flag from Conor. Conor literally took off running in the cage and pushed the guy away and kept the flag on his shoulder, like wrapped around his shoulders. So, I don't know. But that was the first time I ever really saw Dana not being like I'm not doing that. Literally earlier in the press conference, they asked about the bonuses, and Dana's like, I'm not doing that fucking shit ever again. It didn't make anyone fight harder tonight. We had 7 decisions in a row. He's like, I'm never fucking doing that again. And he took ownership of it like he normally does. He didn't do that in these other 2 instances. I don't know if it's because he just didn't want to deal with the hassle of the question. That's definitely possible. But I do also think it can be a transition of passing the torch and starting to slowly transition into a new normality. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But that press conference, there was the flag, there was Muhammad. I feel like there was one other thing where he really distanced himself as the decision maker. And he kept saying they. He's like the people in charge. But I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm almost home. That was 13 minutes. I'm a little worried about Dana White's health. And I think I'm going to say it like this too. I think part of this, it may not even be a passing the torch permanently, like he's going to resign from his position or something. If he's having a health issue and he has to step away for a while, that would make a lot of sense too. Very similar to like what Roman Reigns did in WWE. He got diagnosed with leukemia. He had to take, I don't know, a year, 6 months off, and then he came back around. That could be exactly what is going on with Dana. I would not be surprised at all if that's the case. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. Hopefully I'll have a couple different videos up today. Y'all have a good one.